you a home grower looking for a little bit of help? Are you ready to learn as much as you can about your favorite hobby? The Homegrown Helpers brings you informative interviews from experienced growers that have taken the next steps in their journey and decided to help you grow top quality cannabis all in your home. Now welcome in our host, Rob Smith, along with this week's Homegrown Helper. And here we are with another episode of the Homegrown Helpers. This is your host, Rob, the Homegrown Helper, the owner of Atlas Plant Trainer, Green Harvest Solutions, producer of Growcast. You can find all the stuff that I do at the Homegrown Helpers, essentially, not anywhere else, I guess. So today is one of the first international calls that I did for this project. I talked to some Canadian consultants back, when we were first doing the original format here. However, I'm from Maine, so I just I don't necessarily consider Canada completely international. We are typically referred to as Southern Canada from where I'm from in Maine. So, talking to this next guest who is Brandon from South Africa, Brandon really brought some interesting knowledge and a different perspective than I think a lot of you have heard before. So it is thrilling to me to connect with people and hear these stories and bring these grow stories and grow advice to you, which, Brandon does not disappoint. First we touch upon a lot of the stuff about what it's like growing in South Africa, the different laws, all that type of jazz. But then we, start talking about how important it is to be prepared and how Brandon took that to the next level, or had to take that to the next level, where a lot of us in the US and take it for granted that we can just go down to the grow store. Brandon just had to order things in. He talks about why he chose to grow in the deep water culture. And then we kind of drift into the IPM, and those two kind of things go hand in hand. So I really think you're going to enjoy this interview. I hope that you enjoy this interview and this type of stuff. I've really had a great time bringing these interviews to you, and I'm going to continue doing this because the type of knowledge that we're able to pull out of these growers from around the world is really going to help you elevate your grow game. And this is all made possible from our friends over at Rooted Life. Rooted Life is actually my wife's company. Her name is Danielle. And we started this journey into the cannabis industry more than 5 years ago. And Danielle just didn't like working for me, essentially, is what it came down to. I can be a prick at some points in time, kind of a hard ass, demanding. And she really, enjoyed helping people feel better. And that's what she was doing for, our caregiving business. So she actually started the CBD business more than 2 years ago. It's called Rooted Life. You can find them at Rooted, ROOTED, Life, LYFE, because, they can help you find your why in life. And they make top quality CBD products, tinctures, salves, lotions, this face mask that if I didn't have a beard, I would admittedly use it because I've heard great things about it. But rootedlife.com, you can use the code GROWCAST to save yourself 10%, or our members at mygrowpass.com save 20% on all of their Rooted Life orders forever. So yeah, if you're in the market for CBD products that you can trust and want to support a locally owned, women-owned company, head to rootedlife.com and check out their stuff. So without further ado, we're going to kick it over to the interview with Brandon. I hope you guys enjoy this type of stuff. And don't forget, if you really like what we do here, give us a rating and review. We'd certainly appreciate it. Now on to Brandon. Welcome to the show, Brandon. I'm not going to tell everybody where you're from. I'm going to let you tell everybody where you're from and a little bit about yourself and your journey with cannabis.
Sure, thanks. Great to be on the show. And before I start off, I just want to give a shout out to every grower that's out there, every breeder, every manufacturer of all various kinds of equipment. And your posting on social media is such a valuable and educational asset. And big ups to you guys. I mean, it takes as much effort as growing. I see with some people how they do it. So that's just to kick it off. I'm in somewhere in Southern Africa, and we're in a region that's quite diverse when it comes to legalities and situations. And for myself, I learned less than 4 years ago, I knew nothing about cannabis. And in that 4 years, it's been an exponential learning curve, literally starting with zero knowledge and then just getting online and seeing all the various people and what they do, and you follow their examples and the equipment they use, and you research the equipment and so on and so forth. And then getting into genetics, that's another topic altogether as well. So thank you.
Well, that was awesome. Tell us, you're in South Africa. You've been growing for 4 years. What was your relationship with cannabis before you started growing?
Okay, well, I'm 51, so I was a university student in the States in the mid 80s. It was a great time, and most of my cannabis knowledge I learned there actually on a social. And I'll say I went and I was in Columbus, Ohio, and we'd get stuff from called Mex County Gold. There's Kentucky with those trees as big as pine trees. All kinds of ganja that was coming up, even the Mexican stuff, very nice stuff up from Florida. But we had no names. It was just good shit, okay shit, and dirt shit. So that's all the names we knew.
That's pretty much how I think we all grew up until like 2000s.
Yeah. So I left to the States in 1990 and moved to Africa. And then I was exposed to the local genetics over here. We had Malawi Gold, Malawi Black, and those are very seedy. They came wrapped up in corn cobs in the covers. And so they would actually cure them in those and bury them. And it was very, very strong stuff. And of course, we had Black Swazi. Durban Poison was like a unicorn. If you knew someone that had Durban Poison, you're like, where? And then we also had shit, lots of shit.
That Malawi Gold and the corn curing. Do you have any experience with that?
Only as a consumer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to somebody that cures in corn husks. So
it's quite well known. I mean, they harvest the plants, they dry them out in the sun, and then they just break buds off and then wrap them in corn cobs, and then big bunches of that would be buried underground for about, I don't know, 3 or 6 months. I'm not sure exactly. But yeah, we can find out. It's not hard.
That is so wild. I just learned about this process like 6 months ago.
Oh,
and cool. I was trying to wrap my head around the water curing. Have you heard that?
Where you drop it in water and then dry it? Is that what you mean?
No, that's cleaning, like bud washing.
Yeah.
Some people are actually putting their buds in water after it's dried, like water curing. I don't know. I've never experienced it, but some people say it works for them. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, no, something new to look into.
Right on. Can you tell us about your current grow setup? As much as you're willing to share.
Sure. So, compared to those of you who are lucky enough to grow in the US, you just go online, order something, and within a couple of days, it arrives at your front door. For me, it was like a war plan. It was a build up to a war, and then you execute the war, and then you're in the war. So at first, I had to study my environment in order to choose which method I was going to go for. So I had one room, I measured it, and I drew it on paper to scale. And then I'd look up like tent sizes, and I'd figure out how many tents I could fit into that room. And then per tent, what am I going to put in there? So I decided to go for RDWC. And so I designed how many buckets and what kind of systems, and down to where the humidifier and dehumidifiers go and the chillers. So everything was well measured and calculated. And then I had another room that would be where the water purification and storage would be, and the air intake filters and the exhaust would come out from, because I can't have pipes sticking out of walls and stuff. So in Africa, generally, in the suburban areas, we have domestic workers like a house cleaner and a gardener or two, or depending on the size of the property, up to a dozen. So it's got to be quite, camouflaged to them as well, and it's happening on the same property. So that's very, very hard work. So in my room, I've got 3 tents: a 10 by 10, 4 by 8, and a 4 by 4. and I have different systems, and so I don't really have grows. I'm perpetually having stuff uh, propagating and in veg, and then either single or double plants going into flower, or a whole system like the 10 by 10 when it's in full steam running. I've got 16 buckets going. They're 2 8 bucket systems, so I can have different schedules and whatnot. So it was fun. It was, from a technical point of view, it was very challenging, because everything you were going to choose, there's no, oh no, I bought the wrong thing, let me send it back.
Right.
Once it's crossed the ocean, once it's here, it's stuck here.
Right.
So warranties and whatnot, I don't really care for, because if I have a problem, it's my problem. And then choosing a vendor which would give me everything that I needed was a challenge. I dealt with several companies, but then I was blessed to deal. Eventually, I ended up with a company in Sonoma, and they were amazing. They took my designs, and then they saw where there were some flaws or some enhancements. They suggested them for me, and so it was a nice project with that vendor. It's very cool. So I got everything from that vendor. It came by air freight, and then 6 months later, I had a second order because we learned that you forgot stuff.
Okay. Oh,
and then so you plan your shopping carts like 6 months, a year ahead.
Right. I just don't know if I could do that, Brandon. I just
it's doable.
Well,
it's a shame though. I have 4 acres of great soil outside that I can't use.
Well, start planting that hemp, buddy.
Yeah, we can get into that.
What's the hemp legalization?
The legalization, because that's a saucy topic.
Okay, then we'll get back to that. Just 1 second.
Yeah.
So you never grew cannabis before designing this your setup?
Correct.
Okay.
What really taught me was YouTube.
Okay. And podcasts like Growcast, right?
That came later. Okay. We all started somewhere. That's part of the evolution.
Okay.
When I discovered you guys, great, amazing stuff you guys do. It's very nice with the memberships, and the knowledge base is huge, so it's cool.
Thank you. I wasn't pining for a compliment, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
No, I don't.
So you got to mention this company that helped you out by name.
Sure. These guys are called Monster Gardens.
Yes, Monster Gardens.
They're very, very cool guys. Very cool guys. And it wasn't just they sold me something and that was the end. When I had technical questions or whatever, I'd ask, and the guy who knew the best would get back to me and help me out, and especially with the pest issues, because I started off before my grow room was completed. I had to get an electrician to do the wiring and all of that, not let them know what that was all about. So I had to make some bullshit thing about a huge sound room, and it's going to be like 5,000 watt speakers and all of that. So the room hadn't been totally finished, but the kit arrived, and you've got all this knowledge, you've got the equipment finally, you're bursting to get started. So I started the 4x4 in my house, and I wasn't even using any air filters or anything. The wind was coming through the window. It was summer, so it was nice. We don't get too hot. There's only one or 2 months in the year that get very hot, and then the rest of the time we're around 28 centigrade. In our winters, they don't drop below 7 centigrade. So we've got very nice weather. So I started off, and I had no idea about pests. And then you saw some things. And it was like, oh, damn, I better look that up. And then, okay. And so I realized I had aphids, but I got rid of them quick. But that's no surprise. My garden's full of them. And then what the big challenge in RDWC was actually what happens in the water. And I had larvae from moth flies and drain flies. And nobody in the US has dealt with those, not at least online. So I was basically on my own. And then got a hold of Monster Gardens, and they helped me out as well. So that was cool.
Well, huge shout out to Monster Gardens. I'm glad we got to mention them by name. I just think it's awesome that you designed a system that they gave you a bunch of pointers and advice on ways to improve it and get everything that you needed all at once. And I'm just in awe, I guess, because I don't think I could have done that for my first 6 months or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I had 5 grow stores within 25 minutes of my house. And that's where I learned a lot, hanging out for hours, talking to other growers.
Right.
And if I ran out of something, I could, go down and grab it.
Well, the environment we have here is, especially in the farming community, you out on the farm, you're pretty much everything. You need to know irrigation, you need to know electricals, you need to know, of course, I mean, you're a farmer, so all the agricultural stuff is taken for granted. But on top of that, you need to know to be a builder, construction, civil works, and all that stuff that you do. You don't hire people to come and do that for you. So we do have a kind of self-sufficiency kind of attitude here. So it's nothing new to us.
That's awesome. Brandon, can you talk a little bit about the legality of home growing and, what's happening in South Africa?
Sure. So over 2 years ago, the High Court in Cape Town ruled that the cannabis laws were a constitutional violation to the right to privacy in your own home. So if you are an adult, whatever you do in your own home is your business and nobody else's, and unless you're harming somebody. So when it went to the Supreme Court, because Cape Town is a province, so it went to the High Court, and then the question there was, well, is it harmful? The government had a very weak case in proving the harms of cannabis, because we all know, most of us do at least, that all these alleged harms were mythical, especially when it came to lung cancer. It was actually proven that regular cannabis smokers were less likely to get lung cancer from smoking.
Right.
It's the tobacco that makes it more complicated. But anyway, so it was great when the High Court ruled. They ruled that no, it's a violation of privacy, and so they gave the order that Parliament is supposed to come up with laws within 2 years to accommodate this ruling. And so and that's getting close. I don't know, maybe 6 months from now, maybe. And we have no idea what it's going to be. And the ruling, when it came to, they said this is for private use, so there's no commercial legality whatsoever. So you grow it, you consume it in your own property. That's one thing, but you can't take it out and sell it, for example. So the question of what's the plant count that constitutes private use? Right. This is what really is the most controversial topic, is what constitutes private use. And so some people would say, well, I'm happy with 8. We saw Colorado started off with 99, sorry. And I don't know, where are we now? 6?
Yep, I believe so.
So we're aware of this, and we don't want that repeated over here. So we've really got our guards up, trying to be influential in the determination of what would be a private use. But what the High Court said, that they were going to treat it like alcohol. So, for example, if you've got a basement full of 3,000 bottles of different wines, well, obviously you're a collector. But if you've got 200 cases of some kind of brand of vodka, well, you're running an illegally unlicensed bar operation in the alleyway somewhere. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious what would constitute commercial or private. I like the argument of, well, my daily need is I need to juice 300 grams a day.
Right.
Because I don't want THC, I want THCA, for example, and CBDA. So I need a lot of plant matter for that. So I did the numbers. For 300 grams a day, I'd need a plant count of 500. And I'd be comfortable with that.
That's a lot of plants.
That's a lot of plants. That's a lot of juice.
Yep.
But it can be argued. I mean, it's a valid. If you want to juice it rather than smoke it, or take it in a decarboxylated form, that should be a right too. I don't see why that should be discriminated. Anyway, and then in the meantime, cops are still busting homes, and it's illegal now. Before, when they used to invade a home, they used to trash everything and confiscate it. But now they have to actually. They come into your property and they see your operation, and then they call you to court. And now you have to prove that this is private. So at least there's the breathing room of not having your whole setup trashed right away. There is some time to defend yourself. That's a huge difference.
So it's improved a little bit, but cops still pretty much have the ability, or, free, maybe not free reign, but almost free reign to like, hey, you're growing weed, I'm going to come bother you and harass you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But then when these cases go to court, they get thrown out. So it's a question of time before it becomes financially burdensome their arresting is also making quotas. So whether there's a conviction or not doesn't affect the quota. It's not like, well, that guy didn't get convicted, so we're going to take this much money back from this police department, for example. So once they've made an arrest, they get their cut.
Right.
And then they don't care if it's followed by a conviction or not. That's something for the judicial system to do. And if we look at there's other African countries in the region, like Zimbabwe, what they've done. Well, no, let me start with Lesotho. Lesotho is great because they allowed foreign investment, and a lot of big money people came and they've set up in the highlands, and some are cool and some are not cool, but that's the same everywhere else. And so, but a lot of local people are getting employment. Not only that, they're getting skilled employment. So they're being taught. And so after 2 years of working in a huge greenhouse operation, people get moved up the ladder quickly. So for now, that's a positive outcome. But the production is all exported. So you're not really getting any local, for example, medicinal benefit for the local areas because all the good stuff is being shipped out. So that's something that needs to be corrected, I think, in my opinion. But then you get a country like Zimbabwe where they've given out paid-for licenses, but they're only interested in foreigners coming. Locals can't be involved. So that's not very encouraging over there. Malawi is doing hemp as a pilot, and the legalities is in Parliament right now.
So you mentioned this in your intake form about South African growers being forced out of the industry and that they're only allowing foreign growers in. Can you talk about that? Like, what's the reasoning behind that?
Well, not South Africa, Southern Africa.
Okay.
So
okay.
The problem with the regional governments is they have an arrogant point of view that the locals know nothing. And I mean, when I say locals, I mean all us inhabitants in our various colors and creeds. And so therefore the wisdom must come from outside, and so must the money, where there's plenty of local money to be invested. And there's plenty of local knowledge. I mean, like I said, I'm only 4 years into it, but I know guys have been doing this 30, 40 years.
Right.
And so, and then when the doors are opened up and we're dealing with growers and manufacturers on your side, you know, the knowledge really boosts upwards in a very positive manner. So what I'd like to see is, like, you know, you have breeders and they're growing at certain latitudes and altitudes, and they've got great strains like Bodai, you've got Shanti Baba. There's many. Sorry, these two stick first in my mind. And so to try out their genetics in a different, and like in a tropical zone, in a controlled environment where they get to crossbreed with local, even though it's harder and harder to find local landrace, but there is still some. And to combine these great genetics with ours, and then to see what the locate, because, you know, the plant is half genetics, half environment. So this kind of environment isn't really being studied. It's all, you know, in greenhouse and controlled environments. But what about, you know, there's a lot of outdoor buffs in the States, living soil guys and organic guys. And, you know, I'd like to see that go on. But if it's a closed commercial type, because who are we getting? We're getting Canadians. So they're just warehouse, greenhouse guys. No one's coming in from let's see what we can learn from the environment and the various genetics, and maybe even doing crossbreeding of well-known genetics and replicating it here to see if there's a difference.
Right.
I mean, like THCV, is it a strain thing, or is it because the environment induced that? So, we know very little. What is it? 1% of 1%. So there's so much more to learn. And guys are just thinking about the money rather than, we need guys saying, okay, money's great, but what about knowledge? I mean, where are we going to be in 10 years? How are we going to benefit the population with this? Because governments are just looking at this as a tax income. And, that's not the right way to go about it.
Right.
In my opinion.
Well, you know, we've been on the phone for about 20 minutes now, and I don't think we've really gotten into any grow advice yet. So,
sure.
You know, audience, I just want to revisit the fact that, you know, there are places in this world like, you know, Southern Africa where you cannot grow your own cannabis at home. legally.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
part of our
I'm
mission
there.
here, right. Part of our
I'm in
mission
one of
here
those.
is spreading knowledge, but also, glorifying the home grower. And to be a home grower, we have to be part of the progress. So, if it's not legal, or even if it is legal in your state, get involved, get out there, and continue to fight for our rights and, the rights of the people in your neighboring states and other states around you or other countries.
Sure.
And we're going to take a quick break to thank one of our most beloved partners here at Growcast and the Homegrown Helpers, and that is Fish It. And my buddy Tom, who runs Fish It, and some of the fine employees like Aaron, who really take care of things on the day-to-day. First off, go to fishheadfarms.com, use code GROWCAST to save yourself 10%, while our members save 25% on all of their Fish Shit orders, as long as, we continue to do this thing, and Tom and the guys over at Fish Head Farms want to kick around. So we just wrapped up a giveaway where we gave away 2 different liters of Fish Shit to somebody, and that is pretty much like a life-changing amount. I mean, that's a $125 retail value, and for some home growers, they're going to use that liter of Fish Shit for the next year because it is such a powerful, potent nutrient or system. It's not even a nutrient. It's a microbe, I guess. And it is literally fish shit harvested from tilapia, I believe it is, from a farm in Massachusetts or Rhode Island, and bottled up and sent out to you. And you just pour it on your plants, in a diluted amount. And it helps activate everything that's already in the soil, and it brings out the absolute best, the best terpenes, the best cannabinoids, more weight, accelerates ripening and harvest. And I mean, you really can't ask for much more. So head on over to fishheadfarms.com, use the code GROWCAST, save yourself some money, sign up at mygrowpass.com, save yourself some more money. And we just wrapped up a giveaway, but always head on over to growcastpodcast.com/giveaway and sign up for the next one. I think the next one is Amazing Dr. Zymes, which we mentioned in the last show. So thanks to Fish Head Farms and all of our amazing partners. And welcome back, everybody. I have Brandon from South Africa, and he's rocking it, talking about the legalization and what's happening in South Africa. But now we're going to dig into some grow advice. Brandon, you put that you have 2 IPM protocols and you wanted to talk about it on air. So why don't you talk about it?
Okay. We've got all kinds of bugs here in Africa. I think nasty ones I don't think you guys have even heard of. So one of the reasons why I chose RDWC as a method and to have a completely sealed environment is because of pests. So I couldn't afford to gamble with soil and what's in the soil. And so I can't import soil from the States because that's just expensive from a freight point of view.
And crazy.
Yeah. Crazy. So, I was forced by the parameters of my environment that those really forced me into the technology I chose to use for growing. And so when I first started out, it was, you see some bugs and then you look up and hydrogen peroxide came up quite a bit. And that was a great help. But then when I was using the small 4x4, I didn't know I had an infestation. So when my grow room was finished and I fired up my 16 bucket, 2 systems totaling 16 buckets. My first round was just 8 buckets. I didn't do that. I noticed there were larvae in the buckets, and plants were well developed, well into veg. And another thing, as a newbie, you're growing 8 different strains, and if one of them had a deficiency or a problem, you've got to wait for that one to recover before you want to flip into flower. So an extended veg was like a thing that was fated for me. I've had many extended veggies because I let the plants lead me rather than me stick to a schedule.
Sure, that's good advice.
And you're bound to have different errors. So reading deficiencies or seeing problems and reacting to problems. And then when I discovered about the larvae, it was quite substantial. And so I started off with mixing H2O2 into the water at about 3 ml per gallon, but the 35% hydrogen peroxide, not the 3%. And that seemed to not kill them, but it put them into sleep so that I could actually pick them one by one through the bucket lids. So a 2-hour daily chore of picking up larvae from the root mass let me follow through into a good harvest. Only 2 plants were really affected, but I think that's because they were sativa dominant CBD plants. I mean, I'm looking back in hindsight, and they were a tough plant to grow. They're very picky when it comes to nutrients, so not very wise for either RWC or in combination with other strains. So I've never done a monocrop of those, but they were failed grows, I think, due mostly my fault, not the genetics, because they were solid genetics. However, on the CBD, with the on the indica dominant, like I had a OG Kush CBD by CBD Crew, and that was very beautiful plant. Yielded great results, beautiful buds. It was great. So sorry, getting back, I digress. In the meantime, Monster Gardens then told me about a cellulose product called Pure Crop One, and well, I haven't looked back since using that product. I mean, I use it all the time. I've seen bugs, but I've one bug and it's dead on the floor once a week or something like that. But nothing on the plants. I haven't seen any issues. And it also helped in my second grow when I had 16 buckets going, and it was very hot. My tent was 95 degrees with 80% humidity, and that Pure Crop helped me from getting mold and all kinds of stuff. So it was a solid product, very solid product. I love it.
So that was one, right?
Well, the hydrogen
okay.
The number one is make sure you don't get bugs in your grow room. So you seal your so that's a mechanical or a physical thing where you tighten everything up. You really have a sealed system. So door frames and doors, and I had a new ceiling put in and totally sealed up. So I was airtight, and so my air was coming in through a filter and going out through a filter, and those were any ports through the walls were very well sealed as well. So that's the number one IPM, is actually the mechanical one, having and a sterile environment, keep your place clean.
Cool.
I think half the job is cleaning up and mopping up and sweeping and on your knees. I had to get knee pads because it was sore. You're on your knees a lot when you're a single grower, and RDWC, depending on. So what the problem is when you've got chillers and your water's at like 67, 68 Fahrenheit, and the ambient temperature in the tent gets above 87, I noticed, you get a lot of condensation. The buckets will actually drip pools of water at the bottom of the tank.
Right.
And so then that contributes to more RH. And so everything pushes each other up. And counteracting that, thank God I had multiple fans and filters to play around with that. So it was mostly a reactive thing. I just got things started, and when things happened, I had to figure out what to do. Part of the learning.
Yeah, you actually have that listed down as your biggest failure and learning opportunity. I like to call them.
Yes.
Is high temps and high relative humidity.
Yes.
What did you do to overcome that?
So the humidity, I had to get a dehumidifier. I had to get a second one. And then I learned inside a tent, you want a dehumidifier where you can actually get the exhaust out of the tent. And so that's another thing I learned, that so I'm trying to bring humidity down, but I'm pushing temperature up because that hot air coming out of the dehumidifier is feeding back into the tent.
Right.
And so your extraction fan, thank God I had big extraction fans, 10-inch fans. So those help, but sometimes those even weren't good enough at full blast, and you just had to pray. I mean, it got to a point where without an AC, you're not really in command. If you can't control temperature, you're not really going to be in command of humidity either. So I found an AC is vital. I've shut down now. I've just had my last harvest 2 months ago, and I'm not starting again until I have a 10 kilowatt solar system going, because we've had for 9 months now 18 hours of power cuts. So that's a real shit situation.
Oh wow.
But getting back to humidity, you need an AC.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with a lot of volume of water, so that's one thing I learned when I had 8 buckets and then 16. You had more volume of water, so you had more condensation, and that affected the climate inside the tents as well. So yeah, and then I figured what eventually solved it was I actually extracted air from the whole grow room, the room that had the 3 tents.
Yep.
So I would pull in more fresh air, and exhaust out more of the ambient room, and that helped things inside the tents as well. So in the end, it's all about. So I had 3 cubes within a big cube,
Right.
And so they're separate entities, so almost.
Now, it seems like, based on how I'm envisioning your setup, that you have a separate room outside of your grow room with the tents in it. Have you thought about making that kind of a lung room and kind of using the cool air in there or the space in there, putting an AC in your grow room and having the hot air from the air conditioner blow into this other room where things won't be disturbed?
An AC would definitely have to be outside the room, outside the structure that grow room is at. But I'm also thinking of moving it to a totally different area altogether. So I'm still in transition, deciding what I'm going to do. But the second room was basically for water storage and the air exchange, and the windows of that room were open.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was getting fresh air, but in the daytime, which is also, I timed it so that my lights are on at night.
Right.
That helped a lot because we have your temperature can fluctuate by 15 degrees centigrade or even 20 degrees centigrade from daytime to night. So it's a great advantage. That helped also is having a nighttime light schedule compared to a daytime one. And then in the daytime, because it's hot, I would minimize the air intake. I wouldn't draw in hot air into the room. I'd just let things stagnate a bit.
So what I'm envisioning is there something preventing you? I know you have concerns about what's on the outside of your home. Is there something preventing you from putting an air conditioner in the window of the intake room? So the air in that room is always like ice cold and it's feeding into your grow room?
The problem is it's a stealth operation, and that's allegedly a storage room. So why would somebody who's got no ACs in his main house
Gotcha,
have an AC in one storeroom?
Trying to keep food at that optimal temperature for long storage, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, we're making up excuses. I mean, yeah, it's in the pipelines.
Yeah, I just didn't know that
sure.
You didn't have any other ACs. I'm a big AC dude. I couldn't live without it, but I digress.
Oh, no. I mean, I drive around with the windows down. I never use AC, even when it's like 34 degrees. I like wind compared to closed environments.
Cool.
And it's funny, like when I'm in veg, that's when the humidity is really, as soon as you walk in, it hits your lungs.
Right.
You take that breath. And then sometimes the humidity was so high, but that was designed that way for veg. I couldn't stay longer than 30 minutes. You had to leave. And then you've got to have towels. You feel like a boxer or something, just sweating. And it's not sweat, it's just condensation.
Right.
But yeah, it's fun. I mean, you're learning in all kinds of ways. It's one thing I found that the plant has taught me. It's a really magical experience. Sorry, I'm not a hippie, and I've got nothing against them. I mean, I went to dead shows and stuff, so just clearing that one out. But it truly is a magical plant. It really is teaching me how the universe operates. When you're alone and you're doing your pruning and defoliating and just your general maintenance and just also staring at buds growing or leaves developing. It's a beautiful experience. And I believe that the plant its spirit is so clean and so organic. It's won the war, or it's winning the war on drugs. But there's another war, and that's the corporate war, where they just want to monetize the crap out of it. And there's so much more to learn from this plant other than just money and net weights and so on. I believe there's greater value in what's to come of it. And people need to chill.
Well, that is a great place to wrap this up, Brandon. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have any last bits of advice that you'd like to pass along to the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, just one thing I'll say to everybody is I see there's a lot of dissing and hating and criticizing. Look, there's a lot of newbies, and they're going to ask stupid questions. I know I've asked them. Look, don't answer. If you're not interested in helping that guy, just don't say anything. Keep scrolling. And then, be nice people. It's a nice plant. It's meant to make us all nice to each other. And that's what I'm going to end.
Awesome. Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Brandon, how can people find and connect with you if they'd like to?
My Instagram is at Zimgrow, ZIMGRO.
Awesome.
It's a private account, so I will vet you.
I assume that's short for Zimbabwe Grow?
Yeah, you're the first one to get it.
Really?
Yeah, no one else has
All
guessed it. It's kind of obvious.
All right. Well, I mean, you're in Africa.
It's like
I don't know. It was the first thing that came to my mind.
Hiding in plain sight. Yeah, right. Yeah. Breeders, growers, manufacturers, welcome. I just don't want guys trying to sell me crap I don't need. That's like going away.
Yeah. Don't sell me crap either, guys.
Yeah.
All right, Brandon, thanks so much for your time today. And audience, happy growing. And we'll catch you next time.